Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and carrying on with the NUX things I got sent a few weeks back. It's the loop core stereo. So I've had a couple of weeks kind of playing around with this and sort of checking it out. And long story short, I've actually sold my Ditto X2 Jam just in favour of having this. So let's kind of chat about it. I'll give some kind of looper tips and stuff like that, because I definitely think that whether it's this looper or any looper, this is one of the best things someone can buy, to get better at guitar, especially if you're a beginner. And definitely, let's say that you've been playing for a couple of months and every time you've picked up the guitar, you felt like you've got a bit better, but now you've stopped. You've hit that first of many plateaus in your learning. That to me is the perfect time to pick up a loop pedal like this, because you'll get that sense of progression and learning and just progress and fun back, and it's just a wicked tool for that. So this looper in particular then, I suppose all you really need to know about it is a single switch, mono or stereo. You've got 99 user kind of saved presets. If you want to have like sections of songs loaded in and record them later, you can do that. You can control them with MIDI if you want. You have USB-C on the back, which is for firmware updates, as well as loading in MP3 files, which I'll get onto later on because I've had a bit of trouble with that. What else you got on here? You got a drum machine as well, and it has 50 different patterns and stuff like that. So, and just overall, it's just a good, decent, feature-packed looper for around about the £100 mark, brand new, fully metal enclosure, nice big screen on it as well. So I've shown you one of the loops. In fact, I think it was the first loop I ever learned in the intro jam there. So this next one I'm going to show you, this is another one that I think is just a great simple chord progression to have on a looper and just practice your kind of improvising a bit, with a song that kind of we all know, and that's Wicked Game. So let me show you that and then I'll be back. So that's another one of my favourites, just to have kind of on a looper, really nice and quick to do. But as you kind of practice your improvising, you're also practicing your timing, your coordination with hitting on the loops. And again, it's just a great way to kind of build in that practice and sense of progress. So before we jump down on the floor and I'll show you kind of the menus and actually how you use this thing, a tip for using loopers: if you're going straight into the front of your amp and you're finding that as you build up 2 or 3 layers, the whole thing just sounds completely messy, not musical or fun at all, an effects loop can definitely help with that. It helps kind of isolate it from the front end of the amp. That's what it's for. But just play everything a little bit softer with a little bit less gain, and as you build up through the layers that you're looping, even if you're running into the front, you'll still find that everything stays quite clean. So if you haven't got an effects loop, don't think that you just can't get a good clean loop. You can still definitely do it in the front end. And if you are new to looping as well, and you've kind of just gone, oh, this just isn't for me, sort of thing. It's probably underrated on. It is difficult, you know. I've been using a looper for, you know, I'm not a heavy looper user for sure, but I've always had one around for practice, and I still find it hard to kind of make sure your timing's right. And for me, more so, especially being blind as a bat half the time, just your coordination with making sure you're stepping in the right place and stuff with the looper. So don't feel disheartened if you've got a looper and you find that you just can't do it, because it is hard, you know, like everything with guitar, it takes practice and it's difficult. So let's go down on the floor and I'll just show you kind of how this thing works and what the kind of features and how you mess around with the settings and stuff is. Alright then, so let's just have a little look at how this looper actually works and sort of talk over its features and how to use it. So let's say that I was about to start playing guitar. I've already recorded something in here just because obviously I can't play and hold the camera at the same time. But let's just say I started playing now. I would tap this switch once the minute I started playing to begin my loop, like this. I'll just turn that up so you can hear it. And then when I wanted to stop and have the loop start playing, you just press it once again. Then it's in the mode we're in now, so it's just going to play the track. And you got this little ring here that will kind of go over how far through that particular loop you are. If I then wanted to play something over the top, I just press once again. And you see dub comes up. And now that's going to record on top whatever signal you play. So if I stop. Now let's say I didn't want to get rid of the loop, but I didn't like what I just played. I can press twice and hold on the second time. And you get that little undo arrow come up. And we've still got the original loop. But we wouldn't have what we played on top. Now let's say I didn't like the original loop. Once it's got no layers on it, twice again. Oh no, that's redo, sorry, hang on. Twice again, and it'll come up clear. And now we won't have any loop on there at all. So let's just say about the volumes, you press this switch just here, and if you found your loop was a bit quiet, you can obviously turn it right up or right down. And if you have the drums, it's the same sort of thing. Press again, and then the drums are on a separate kind of track with its own volume that will affect the loop or the layers you've put down. So it's super easy to use with that screen telling you everything that's kind of going on. So let's have a quick look at the drums then. How do we get into that? So this little button here, that drum style. So you can hear now we've just got a metronome. So we'll turn that up a minute. So that's just, you know, box standard metronome, and then here we have a tap tempo. So if I wanted to speed that up, slow it down. So, you know, nice to have a metronome. But we've also got, if I press and hold the drums, just loads and loads of different, I think there's 50 in total, of different drum patterns. And again, if I wanted to change the volume of that, because it was a bit loud, you've got full control over the volume as well. So let's jump back up to top and I'll give you an example of what that sounds like, you know, when you've got a whole loop going on with the drums. last thing I just want to show you is the sort of settings you've got to play with as well. So you just press the settings once and that takes you in. So you have a display setting, which is your brightness, and also you have a boot up picture as well, which I'm not sure why you'd want your own picture on there, but it's kind of a nice touch. With recording, so it can pre-beat, detect, or just go instant, just means manually sort of thing. So if you've already programmed in a BPM on the drums, you can have it that way and it will kind of automatically come on its own. And that, I suppose, makes it a bit easier, but I find just sticking to like old school manual is usually best. In the dub settings, that changes the order of this switch that we looked at earlier. So at the moment, I always like it to say, you record your loop and when you press it, it stops and just goes into play mode. Or you can have it so that when you stop your original loop, you're automatically recording the next part. I always like to kind of have a little gap in between just to make sure the loop comes out okay. But I suppose if you were live, you would want it in record dub so that the loop very quickly kind of built up. So you can have it either way you want. The stop function, you can have it so that it will just stop dead, handy for practice. One shot means it will play one more time in full. Loop end just means if you stop it before you get to the end, it'll finish that loop and not play it again. And fade out, something we haven't seen in songs for many years now, I don't think, but the old classic, it will just slowly fade away. That's what we use today. And then you have got a couple more things. So if you're using the headphone out, you've got your own independent headphone control. And then there is a factory reset as well if you've kind of messed around with stuff and you just want to, go back to exactly how it was. So I just wanted to show you that. Let's go back up top and chat a little bit more about my thoughts on using this single switch looper. So there you go then. That's a kind of first look and overview of this pedal. So as I said at the start, I've been using it for the last couple of weeks and I have always liked a dual button looper just because that double tap thing, it just introduces a level of difficulty, I suppose. But actually, this one, I don't know why this one in particular, but like I said at the start, I sold my X2 Ditto to just keep this. Because I think that if it's purely a practice tool, it's not for live use or performing or busking, single switch is absolutely fine, it's easy enough to use. And this looper at around about £100, if you are looking for your first looper, this thing is just, it's going to be the only looper you ever need for practicing on your own. And if you get used to the double tap thing and it doesn't bother you, it could be the only looper you need full stop. But it is around about £100, and if you're looking at more budget, because let's face it, if you just want to practice, you don't have to spend £100. You can forego the drum machine, you can forego the stereo thing, and just get something like the Legato for like 40 quid. Tiny little simple single switch looper that will do just fine as well, kind of thing. And just about the drum machines on this as well. So I'm a massive fan of John Frusciante and his earlier solo stuff, and the drum sounds on that, they're very much so kind of old school lo-fi, funny, funky sounding drums, and this thing is kind of in between that and like nicer high-end recorded samples. It kind of sits in the middle. So it's a bit strange. I would kind of almost prefer if the drum sounds were worse, if they're not going to be ultra nicely recorded high-res drum samples kind of thing. And the only other thing to mention is this USB-C thing on here, you can load in complete backing tracks on it, and you've got, as I say, 99 slots. And there's two ways to do it. So on NUX's website, they've got their own file converter, which you just put in your MP3 from wherever. It will convert it to what this wants to see, which off the top of my head is 44.1 kilohertz, and there's a bit rate as well, 16-bit I think. It'll be on their website, but it wants to see that file type basically. So I had a little play around with that, used their file converter online, that worked absolutely fine, loaded it in, but the playback, even at full volume, was unbelievably quiet, too quiet to use unless you just wanted to use it as a weird way to listen to music through your guitar cab. So that was weird. So I was like, okay, I went into Logic, I then made that file way, way louder than it has any right to be, loaded it back in, and it was still very, very quiet with my amp at normal volume. I'll show you a clip now, and I know YouTube compresses audio, but hopefully you'll be able to tell just how quiet the backing track was. So I couldn't quite get that working, but like I said, listen to the clip and you'll see what I mean. So I don't know if I've done something wrong there. Like I said, I used their file converter as well as tried to fix it in Logic myself, and I couldn't get the the backing tracks to then play over loud enough kind of thing. So not sure if that's just me, but thought it was worth mentioning in the video. But if you want a feature-packed looper, that isn't crazy money. I mean, this or a Boss RC1 basically, and I think the RC1 might even be more money, I think. I would take this all day, and the main point is that a looper pedal, especially if you're kind of just starting out on guitar, you're your first couple of months in, get a loop pedal. Whether it's this one, I stand by this one, but any loop pedal, and it's just absolutely well worth having one around. You'll never want to be without one, and if you get one with a drum machine in it, it's probably going to be even more beneficial for practicing with your timing and stuff like that. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on another video very soon.